I've called this podcast Biohacking a Type A Personality, as I love talking to Angela Foster, and we're both definitely Type A personalities. Thanks for listening to Zestology again. I'm Tony Wright, and recording this introduction out and about in London, as I like to do. And today, sometimes the most effective stuff for us lot, and I think that's a lot of people listening to this podcast, is simply slowing down and doing less. It is, though, easier said than done, isn't it? Angela is the founder and CEO of My DNA Edge. And on this podcast, we talk about, we start by talking about one of the least affordable, but most enjoyable hacks, and effective as well. And I'm just kind of putting that out there straight away, because I know it's not that affordable to have an infrared sauna. You can go and use infrared saunas out and about in London and everywhere else, but it's definitely one of the most enjoyable and effective hacks. But yeah, you need relatively deep pockets to get involved. Angela and I both love the Sunlighten Sauna. If you are interested in looking into that more, do remember, if you mention Zestology to the guys at Sunlighten in the UK, you'll get a couple of £100 off. That's a nice little chunk of change. And I think they'd also love to chat. They're very, very nice people. Joie at Sunlighten in the UK. Do give them a call. And as I say, it's a little bit more pricey than some of the free hacks that we talk about in this podcast, but it's just so good. So we start off by talking saunas, and then we hack that Type A personality. Here she is, Angela Foster on Zestology. Right, okay, we're recording. Angela, it's really nice to talk to you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's great to be here, Tony.
Yeah. Well, you are doing well, and I can see the Sunlighten Sauna in the background. So you've decided to get involved in one of those. Are you enjoying it?
I'm really enjoying it, and it is part of, we were chatting a moment ago, and I was saying how I'm trying to slow things down a little bit. And the sauna, although let's face it, sauna is a form of stress in itself, isn't it? But a milder form of stress. It is actually part of my quest to try and get more parasympathetic engagement and kind of calm my body down a bit more. Because I did some tests recently that kind of indicated that after all the burnout and stuff that I'd suffered with and the pneumonia, I still, years on, I'm not really fully recovered and functioning. And so being a kind of typical Type A, I'm always overdoing things. And so that's been part of I go in there and I meditate. Right. It's not big enough to do any kind of reasonable stretching or anything, because it's a two-man one, but I'm loving it. You've got the same one, I believe, have you?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Well, mine is the one man, but I think, it's definitely kind of like 1 to 2 anyway. It's a cozy, you wouldn't want to get in there with someone you didn't know quite well, but there's enough for 2, and it's just so nice. But it's funny what you talk about the Type A. We're definitely both Type A, and that's why we're here doing this podcasting and doing all the rest of it rather than chilling out. But I find even in the sauna, there's so much that you can do. I do a half-hour session in there, and for a start, you've got Netflix in there. When do you get a chance to watch Netflix, on your own with no one else about? So I get in there, and I'm like, okay, shall I watch Netflix? Shall I read my book? Shall I meditate? Maybe I can do a little bit of everything. And even that is a practice in slowing down. So it's not, I'm certainly not complaining, but it's something that you just have to kind of watch out for, don't you?
Oh, for sure. It's funny because I sometimes turn it into my office for half an hour and just put a session on and actually, as you say, do some reading. And that's another thing I've been trying to keep away from is, I think when you're really passionate, I don't know if you find this, Tony, but when you're really passionate about what you do, it's almost impossible to put it down. And so I'm forever reading topics on optimizing oneself and books and things and podcasts. And actually what I've had to try and do is step back and think, well, maybe actually I should just watch Netflix, or maybe I should read some fiction. And I had you might have seen this. This was a couple of months back when we had this Harry Potter challenge in my house with my kids. And the effects on my HRV when I looked on my aura at night were so different, just switching to fiction before bed. Pretty amazing.
That's great. Yeah. Well, you see, I actually find I'm reading these books on King Arthur at the moment, and it's very good. Bernard Cornwell is the author.
This
And
sounds quite hard going, though, isn't
do
it?
you know what? I'd always looked at his books and I thought, oh, he is not for me. And I am absolutely hoovering it up. It's brilliant. It's just really interesting knowing about how people lived and actually, by the way, you know, in the 4th century, there wasn't much to do apart from kind of get in tune with the rhythm of the seasons, hunt, eat, sow, and then every once in a while go to war. So yeah. You'd have been doing the sowing and I'd have been doing the fighting.
You'd have been doing the hunting, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that is definitely how it seemed to work in the 4th century. But thankfully we're not in the 4th century anymore. But anyway, so I find actually sometimes fiction is so good at night that I can't put it down and turn out the light. So I have to do a bit of non-fiction. But there you go. But anyway, so you got the sauna and that's great. And I know you've been working on slowing down a little bit. Just go into a little bit more what you mentioned in terms of the HRV and the testing that you did. You said you had some testing which came up with some adverse results. And I think you mentioned pneumonia as well, which might be quite interesting in the context of coronavirus and how you've been feeling about that as well.
Yeah, so pneumonia was something I had about 5 years ago. I was hospitalized with it, and I'd kind of kept going because I had really young children at the time. I had these monster fevers, like, you know, I knew I had pneumonia, but they were kind of treating me at home. And then it got to the point where it got so bad that my lymph glands were so swollen, they thought I might have lung cancer, which was all quite scary at the time. And I had an emergency CT scan, which was when they actually just admitted me. And after that, I think prior to that, I'd been pushing myself too hard. So my immune system wasn't functioning that well. And I think that's why when the family got a cough, I ended up so sick. But what that meant was there was a long journey of recovery afterwards. So I had pneumonia on both lungs. I was immediately hospitalized. I was actually at a private hospital at the time, and they wanted to transfer me over to an NHS one because they thought they were going to have to intubate me. And I kind of resisted and said, let me rest here for 2 days and we'll see.
Right.
And all the kind of things, you know, I was neutropenic. It was all going the wrong way initially, but then I did pick up. But I think what I'd underestimated is how to rebuild yourself back from that. You know, as a lawyer, I definitely trashed my sleep. I didn't respect it enough. And I know, like, you do night shifts. As lawyers, we would push on through the night so many times just to get that deal done. And inevitably it would get delayed, but the client wanted you to do it. And so you do repetitive nights. And then I had obviously the 3 kids in kind of 4.5 years, which was quite close together. So they were keeping me awake. And I just really then suffered, I think, with burnout. But turning that around has been hard. And so recently I did Dutch testing, Dutch Complete, where they look at so I did the 5 urine samples and 5 saliva samples over the course of the day. And they look at the cortisol awakening response. So looking at what your cortisol is when you wake up, then 30 minutes later, and then 60 minutes later, and then further during the day, alongside some hormones. And what I found was that my initial cortisol when I wake up jumps. It's not out of range, but just when I open my eyes effectively, it seems to be high, and that gets me going. And I naturally wake up early. So that would be consistent with it. But then within 30 minutes, it actually doesn't continue to rise. It goes up a little bit and then it starts to drop. Okay. And you don't normally see that. And then when we looked at the metabolized cortisol through the urine, that was low. So it seems like there's not much left in the tank. And for anyone listening, the way I was experiencing it was to try and get myself going. I would keep doing HIIT workouts. And you hear this, you know, a lot of executive clients that I speak to, for example, you know, that they feel so much better after a 10K run, or if they do a really hard hitting workout, they just find their brain performance is really good. But really, I think what's happening there is that the body's trying to stimulate that cortisol production that you're not really seeing to get you going. And that was happening with me. So, and eventually that will end up, you know, it compromises immune function. You can end up back where I was before. So that was definitely a wake up call to me to say, you've got to stop doing this. You've got to respect recovery. And then recently I've been writing a book, and I didn't anticipate when I was putting together my kind of pillars of health, just how much I was going to end up focusing on recovery. The research kind of just led me there. So yeah, it's something it's a constant battle, because I think I have to remind myself to slow down And I think I am naturally quite an energized individual. The other thing I found, though, is I also had very, very low iron levels. And so this was an area where it doesn't matter how many nootropics you take or how much caffeine you have, you're never going to get the kick if you haven't got enough iron. And so I've had some iron infusions, which has massively sorted me out in that regard.
Wow, because iron is something you have to be quite careful with, isn't it? You don't want your levels to, you can't supplement too much with iron without actually knowing what your levels are like in the first place. Am I right in that?
Yes, definitely. You wouldn't want to, for sure. And for men, it's not normally an issue because obviously they're not menstruating, so they're not losing iron every month.
Yeah.
But for me, I've endometriosis and PCOS, so that's something I've had to kind of try and I've pretty much got those. I wouldn't say you can ever really control them fully, but better than they were before. But that has led to iron deficiency in me, and it's one of those things because I did get some headaches after I had the infusion initially. But actually then around a week later, I just felt like a different person. The brain fog when your ferritin stores are low is kind of inexplicable. And I thought it was just me. I was like, why am I not so motivated? Why can't I push myself to do more, you know?
Just on that, have you ever looked at hacking the cycle, menstruation and kind of PMT and everything else? Certainly my partner and I were talking about whether there are hacks in that area, and I don't really know what they would be. But it does strike me that so many people suffer from this, and it's really interesting talking about low iron levels, because I haven't really thought about that. But I just wondered if you looked at that.
I have looked. So I have been looking recently in a bit more depth at Elisa Vitti's work, who wrote In the Flow, and also Dr. Stacey Sims, who I'm actually going to get on my podcast. She's got a new course coming out, and she works with a lot of athletes in terms of optimizing their training around their menstrual cycle. And one of the things that I've taken away from the research is it's definitely different for women, and I don't think you can just push all the time. Yeah. You know, men sort of push, recover, and with women you get those fluctuating hormones throughout the month, and sometimes you're just not feeling it. You're just not, and actually you need to go with that. The other area I've noticed as well is there aren't that many scientific studies that have been done, but a lot of women are replicating what men are doing with fasting. So they're going for these extreme fasting protocols where they're doing maybe 20 hours a day fasted and then restricting the eating window to sort of 4 hours. And that, again, is a form of stress. And women, certainly women that are premenopausal, we don't seem to be that well suited to it. And it can, just push cortisol up a bit too high. And it can affect hormonal balance in the body. So that's one area I've been looking at, is how can you optimize your training? And it's, like Paula Radcliffe, amazingly, she basically got a world record, I think, on day 1 of her menstrual cycle. Right. And so the funny thing is, at that point of the month, what they're saying is actually you're almost like a man sometimes. But for some women, and they don't feel it. And actually, to be honest, what I've noticed, and maybe your female listeners will pick this up themselves if they track it, is that one month you might feel amazing at the beginning of the month, and other months actually you just feel really, really exhausted. And I think it's actually getting more in tune and understanding what you should be doing. But there are times when you're stronger. So in the middle, in the higher hormone phase, as you lead up to that, you can have much better kind of strength gains, and you can change your training around a bit. I haven't played much with the food. Some people do that, and they eat different foods around different times. But what I did pick up on my Dutch test is that my hormones looked to be a bit lower in terms of estrogen and progesterone. And I think that is largely as a function of just pushing too hard, working too hard, 3 children. And that lowers, in the same way men get, lower testosterone, it lowers the female hormones. Yeah. And so, it is really interesting though. Have you done much, you and your wife, in that area yet? Or?
Well, it's kind of interesting because we're always thinking about it. And obviously in that particular area of the menstrual cycle, I obviously don't really know anything about it, but we've talked about it, and I'm definitely going to get her to listen to what we've just been talking about today. So, I mean, certainly in terms of my exercise routine, I definitely have fluctuations from day to day. And I know you mentioned that you were listening to the Qigong interview that I did on Zestology. That's something that, for me, sometimes I just do need a gentler workout. And I think quite gentle exercise suits me well, particularly because I am driven. You know, you were talking about that kind of male kind of push and recover. Well, yeah, I do feel great after an intense workout and kind of energized. But actually today, for example, I was working until midnight last night, clambered into bed about 1:15. Clearly didn't get a full night's sleep and quite disrupted sleep. And today I am going to do just a Qigong class and then probably lie in the sun for a little bit. And that'll suit me much better than a more intense workout, I think. So yeah, just trying to kind of tune into the rhythms
sense,
of how I feel. Yeah.
And also I think that if you continue to kind of push too hard, you actually get the opposite effect. So certainly with women, that's the other thing I've really noticed is, from doing more research into it, is as hormone levels seem to start to drop as well as you kind of go through your 40s, it's so important to make sure that you're getting enough protein and that you're stimulating muscle protein synthesis through eating protein, but also through exercising and doing resistance training. And not necessarily like HIIT style, but actually just stimulating that muscle growth. So kind of slower resistance training, really important. And they have a knock-on effect, because the more muscle that you have, the better your estrogen levels are. And then, you know, it works the other way around. And so I've been looking at that and making sure that actually I'm getting enough protein in my diet. Because I just think it gets confusing for people, isn't it? Or I should be fasting and I shouldn't eat for 16 hours. But then if you've got a relatively small appetite at any one sitting like me, then you might struggle to get everything in if you go below that. But I definitely... I think just going with the way that your body feels just feels a lot more intuitive, but you do have to slow down and listen, don't you? That's the thing.
Yeah. It's a constant theme, that's for certain. Are there any supplements that you take to, I know, I mean, actually the lifestyle practices are more valuable than supplements, certainly I would say. And I'd say that the best thing is a good night's sleep. Nothing trumps, if you can get 1 more hour's sleep a night, that's better than any supplement. But I wonder if there's any supplements you take to help you slow down, or to help with your cycle, or you mentioned iron there. I just wonder if there's anything there that helps, if you're feeling a little bit sluggish, whether it's a particular time of the month or not.
Yes, I do take, and I do find this helps. I take evening primrose. I actually like that, and I might double that up in the early stage, so in that kind of first 7 days. So I do take that. I sometimes take DIM, which just can help as well for people who do get some mood changes, and also with kind of detoxifying the hormones. So I take that. I take some homocysteine support, because when I looked at my genetics, my SNPs on that front aren't great. And so I do take a good dose of B vitamins, which I find really help.
Yeah, likewise.
So take those. You do as well.
Well, my homocysteine levels have been quite high for quite a while. In fact, I've got a test somewhere. I'm going to try and do that today. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember you saying you were going to test before lockdown, and then it all kicked in and you couldn't.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I need to do it. Yeah.
Go back to it.
Homocysteine is definitely something that that's the most accurate indicator of future heart disease, much more so than cholesterol levels, isn't it? So it's really good that you're taking those B vitamins.
I should actually test my homocysteine. I could see on the Dutch test that it looked like I needed some B vitamin support. So I've been doing that. I also take like high strength omega-3. I find that is just invaluable. But my skin and my hair just looks so much better when I'm taking kind of anywhere between 2 and 4 grams of omega-3 daily. So that's what I'll take.
Great.
Reasonably high dose. And try and eat some oily fish as well. But the rest of it, I take actually recently, do you know what I've been playing around with, which is really cheap, is I was finding that with nootropics, you get that attenuation, which I think they know, and so you need to cycle in and off them.
But actually, by that, do you mean that you just get used to it?
You get used to it, yeah. And I think it happens with a lot of them. But interestingly, there's a personalized nootropic company that have just reached out to me to test those. And they do it based on your questionnaire results. And you take different versions of their supplement depending on how you are feeling or what your work demands are. So I'm really excited. These guys are based in the States to try this.
Okay.
And that keeps mixing it up. So I'll let your feedback on that. But I have been taking creatine with an amino acid blend, and that actually gives me amazing concentration. I really noticed an uptake on that.
What brand is that then? I haven't tried that, but I'll give it a go.
So the amino acid blend is essential amino acids.
Okay.
So not the BCAAs. So it's got everything, and that is by Love Life, which doesn't have any sweeteners. It tastes pretty good. It also mixes really well. And then the creatine monohydrate is so, that's a cheap supplement you can kind of get from anywhere. I think mine's Jarrow.
Great. Yeah.
So I mix those in together in the morning, and that actually gives me really good concentration. Caffeine, I know you love coffee. I love coffee.
Yeah.
So I don't give that up. I'm just careful about the time of day. And then other supplements I kind of move in and out with, but I mostly like to do things, as you say, through nutrition and lifestyle. I'm big on eating lots and lots of veg, healthy doses of protein and fats, and just keeping it really simple but tasty. I've been lucky because my husband's a great cook, and so because he's been working from home, he's been like making me lots of food.
Fantastic. Well, that's been one of the real benefits of what's happened over the last few months, isn't it? I feel like I've taught myself to cook properly. I've always enjoyed cooking and pottering around in the kitchen, but I feel over the last few months I've really taught myself to cook, and cook things that are actually kind of respectable as opposed to kind of slop. And it's just very, very enjoyable. That's been one of the best things about lockdown. And the format of this podcast is that I wanted to ask you questions for 20 minutes or so, and you wanted to ask me some stuff, and we're just going to run it out on both podcasts. And in terms of using nutrition to make you feel good, I know you wanted to maybe look into histamine a little bit. That is something that obviously my passion project is the Histamine Intolerance site that I've started. I'm very happy to talk about that. And nutrition is something that becomes much more important with histamine, because all sorts of random foods that you would not expect are high in histamine and can give you quite a response without you really realising it. Well, it took me 25 years to realise it anyway.
Yeah, so this was really interesting for me because I was listening to one of your Zestology podcasts. I forget which one it was. And you were talking on it about how if you had Nespresso coffee, that seemed to trigger a response. But if you were having really good quality coffee beans, and I think you'd invested in a coffee machine during lockdown. Yeah. So, can you explain more about that?
Well, histamine intolerance is when you create too much histamine in the body, and it's kind of quite a frustrating condition, but I'm delighted that I've discovered it, because for 25 years I had all sorts of symptoms. I didn't really realise what was going on. Dodgy gut was the main one for me, and it was so frustrating. Sometimes I felt like I just couldn't fully partake in life because I was suffering all these symptoms, and everybody else was doing exactly the same thing as me and absolutely fine. And it turns out that some of us just create too much histamine, and actually that the percentage figure could be quite high. For example, you mentioned that you're suffering with hay fever at the moment. Well, all of this stuff that I'm about to talk about can massively help with hay fever, unblocking your nose. When you eat a lot of high histamine food, then it might very much affect your allergy symptoms. And there's all sorts of things that can provoke a histamine response in the body, and one of them is cheap coffee, or potentially Nespresso coffee. Certainly for me, and after having talked about it, loads of other people got in touch with me as well. I don't know why, but there's something about Nespresso capsules that means that there's a reaction for me. And it might be the plastic, because obviously what's happening with Nespresso is they've wrapped quality coffee in plastic, and then the plastic gets heated up to very high temperatures to make the coffee. So it might be the plastic, a little bit of the plastic going into coffee. I don't know what it is, or the chemicals in the coffee.
That's quite worrying in itself, isn't it? Having those plastics in your body.
Well, environmentally, I think Nespresso have got a bit of a problem on their hands, actually. But if you have an Nespresso machine, one of the things you can do now is you can buy one of these metal capsules, and you can pack it with your own coffee and hack the Nespresso machine. So that's a way around it that you might
that's
find.
A good hack.
Yeah, it is good actually, isn't it? Yeah. But anyway, we bought a reconditioned coffee machine off eBay, and I love it. It's great. Yeah.
So this is one where you put the beans in, do you? That's what we have, where they get ground fresh.
Yes, and you get to
Yes. Oh, I
feel
love
like
that.
you get to feel like you're a barista without actually having to have any skill at all. There's enough knobs and dials to press and twiddle that I feel like I'm actually kind of having a say in what coffee I'm making. But really, I don't know what I'm doing.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So do you actually have to like put the device in and turn it around and things like that? Because
No, you
ours,
don't. No.
it just actually just does it for you. I
Yeah.
press a button and then it grinds the coffee and
Perfect.
it just sends it out beautifully.
Bean to cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a total convert to it. It's so great. I've definitely desensitized myself a bit to coffee though.
Have you? Just by having too much. So
Yeah,
how do
maybe.
you, in terms of the histamine, do you
Yeah.
find this as well, like with alcohol, for example? Would you get, if you had a glass of wine, would you get kind of a red nose? Do you find that
I
comes
won't
on?
get a red nose, but alcohol is pretty much the highest histamine thing that you can eat or drink. And I mean, I used to get dreadful bad stomach and hangovers on red wine, and even one glass of red wine. And you know, did you mention the Oura ring earlier on? I think you did.
Yes, yeah.
My heart rate variability is sky high after one glass of wine, even now, or any alcohol, or even alcohol in food, weirdly. So yeah, alcohol's been, I've given that up. I've just been contacted by a low histamine wine company through my Histamine Intolerance Instagram. So I'm going to try some of their wine, and I'll definitely post about that. I'm very, very skeptical that I'm not going to have a reaction, but it'd be lovely. But yeah, wine is pretty much the highest. I mean, it's quite frustrating. You got chocolate, avocados, tomatoes, all these things, seemingly random list, really. Leftovers, dreadful. So I freeze everything now, and that's fine.
Is that because a little bit like fermented foods, then
Yeah.
it has higher levels of histamine?
Yeah,
So,
the bacteria and some foods have histamine, and some foods create a histamine reaction. And definitely, yeah, something in leftovers, they can sometimes double in histamine every 20 minutes. So if you've got like, so if you buy a chicken sandwich that's been on the shelf at M&S for 3 days, it might be extraordinarily high in histamine.
Gosh, I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
So for people who have histamine intolerances, fresh is definitely going to be better for them.
Yeah, fresh is massive. Yeah, and as you mentioned, fermented foods. I mean, yogurt. Unfortunately, I mean that's one of the things about lockdown. Angela, I've been making my own yogurt.
Well, I heard that.
Yes.
I heard about your initial attempt.
I'm officially
where
a
it
yogurt
went a bit
maker.
Wrong because of the top. But have you perfected it?
Yeah, I've done 4 batches, and one batch, yeah, I took the lid off, and I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy what I saw in there.
Well, I must say, in terms of making own yogurt, I actually grew up, my father's Lebanese, and in our family, they used to make a lot of yogurt and cheese.
Yeah.
And I want to have a go, but I'm a little bit, I guess I'm nervous that I'm going to somehow poison myself through making yogurt. So how can you tell that actually, as you've fermented this, that it's okay to eat?
Good question, Angela. I'm not going to set myself up as Dr. Yogurt, but what I did is I've got an Instant Pot, and it's got a yogurt setting, so it's great. I think, I mean, step 1, heat up some coconut milk or coconut cream. Step 2, put some probiotics in, and step 3, let it cool, and then put it on yogurt setting. And, you know, anything between 8 and 16 hours later, you come back and you've got yogurt there, and it's a very satisfying process. And I thought, I've eaten enough yogurt in my life that I should try and make it. And they say with yogurt, you know if it hasn't worked. So, so yeah, I mean, 3 times it was absolutely time. 1 time there was clearly, you know, for whatever reason, I might not have sterilized the Instant Pot, which is fairly disgusting, but I think you need to do that first. Yeah, you'll know if it hasn't worked. You know, so, but
so
but yeah,
when it comes, what's the pot that you're using for this?
Well, the Instant Pot, I don't know if you've ever used an Instant Pot, Angela, but it is the most unbelievable bit of kitchen tech. It's
called the Instant Pot.
It's called the Instant Pot
Because I really want to have a go with this, so I'm going to hunt this down and buy one.
Oh, they're absolutely brilliant. They're not expensive. I mean, in the scheme of things, they're probably 80 quid or something like that. And they saute and they boil and they slow cook and pressure cook. And the pressure cooker is probably the best thing about it. It's absolutely brilliant, the Instant Pot. I mean, I probably use it almost every single day. It's a healthy, quick pressure cooker, basically. And I'm a bit of an instant pot bore as well, but you can cook from frozen as well. You can cook frozen meat in there. I haven't cooked chicken in there, but red meat, I'll just put it in there, put some herbs and spices on the top, put a bit of water in, and then an hour later, it's like it's been in the slow cooker for 5 hours.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do like a bit of slow cooking, I must say.
If there's one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it is magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral, powerful and powering over 300 critical reactions, including detoxification, fat metabolism, energy, even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. There's a problem here though, because magnesium's been largely missing from the soil since the 1950s. And that maybe explains why 80% of us may be deficient. Luckily, this podcast is brought to you by Magnesium Breakthrough. It has been for the last couple of months. I know a lot of you are using it already. If you haven't got on the Magnesium Breakthrough gravy train, now might be the time. And you can head to bioptimizers.co.uk if you're in the US, or if you're in the UK, and bioptimizers.com if you're anywhere else in the world. Let's just do that again. bioptimizers.co.uk if you're in the UK, and bioptimizers.com if you're anywhere else. Use the code Zestology10 for 10% off. And the good news is when you do that, you get all 7 forms of magnesium, all critical 7 forms of magnesium. Pretty much every function in your body gets upgraded when you take the proper dosage of magnesium, and you can do that with Magnesium Breakthrough. And all the details are on the bottle about how much you can take and when you can take it and that kind of thing as well. I'm enjoying Magnesium Breakthrough tremendously. I hope you do as well. Head to bioptimizers.co.uk, use the code Zestology10, and now back to the show.
So in terms of I know you've got a great blog on histamine where you put all your research on there.
Yeah.
But what have you found to be the foods? You mentioned all the foods, well, you pretty much gave a list of all the foods that I love. So avocado, dark chocolate, red wine, all these things, which actually are in small amounts really healthy as well. What does your day-to-day diet look like when you're being really disciplined with avoiding it?
I mean, it has been frustrating not being able to have chocolate and red wine. I mean, you're right, they're in small quantities absolutely fine, and I love them. The truth is that they're not fine if you've got histamine intolerance, but also once you start to address this issue, you can start reintroducing it. The whole goal is to kind of get back to a fairly normal way of life. And, we talk about this histamine bucket, which is, you might think of your histamine levels as being like a bucket, and probably everybody is like this. Once your bucket starts to overflow, the symptoms start. So what you want to do is reduce the bucket, eat healthily for a few days, or eat low histamine for a few days, and then be absolutely fine. But my day-to-day schedule would be, I intermittently fast, so I haven't eaten yet. It's about 12:30, but a couple of coffees in the morning. And then for lunch, it'll be, it might be a salad or sweet potato or, anything really, but just as long as it's low histamine. And, there's certain cheeses that are very high histamine, but all cheese is, some cheese you can eat. So mozzarella, ricotta, soft cheese tends to be fine. Those blue Stiltons, they're as bad as red wine.
They're as bad as you can get.
But again,
so you're not going over to France for cheese and biscuits and wine anytime soon.
It's very disappointing. But tomato is high, so I made a pizza the other day, and instead of tomato, I just kind of put a carrot base on it. In fact, quite a few of the high street pizzerias do that now as well. Used a cauliflower pizza base, put some mozzarella and onions and spring onion and garlic on the top. Felt a little bit like...
Sounds tasty.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I went a bit Gordon Ramsay while I was cooking it because I kind of got a bit stressed. I didn't think it was going to be good. But there's a company called Luna Fennel. I think that's what they're called.
Luna Fennel.
Luna and Fennel.
Luna and Fennel.
And they do cauliflower crust pizzas and pizza bases.
Oh, easy.
And it is absolutely delicious. But also so much fun making pizza.
I love making pizza.
Yeah.
I do. That's the one time actually that we indulge. The kids love it, and we do indulge in a bit of gluten there, just because I love pizza dough.
Yeah, well, try these because these are cauliflower pizzas and they're gluten free.
Yeah, much better for you, gluten free.
But certainly, I find workarounds. I eat probably a bit more fruit and a bit less chocolate. Don't really eat much tomato. I don't eat much fish anymore because that's high in histamine, but eat, plenty of very good quality organic meat. And the other major difference is that in the past I'd do a big cook up on a Sunday and I'd have all my meals in the fridge for a week. And now I can do the same thing, but I just freeze anything that I don't use straight away and then use it whenever.
And so because I wanted to ask you about that. So if you're freezing it straight away, but if you're slow cooking something, it doesn't have the same impact then in terms of raising histamine levels.
Slow cooking can, because it cooks for so long, there can be a histamine issue. And that's why the the Instant Pot is so good for histamine intolerance, because you can cook frozen food quickly and safely, and you can kind of get a slow cooked vibe. If you leave something in a slow cooker for 10 hours, it might well accumulate too much histamine. And so slow cooking is kind of out with histamine. And if you're listening to this and thinking, oh dear, it all sounds a bit of a hassle, it's easy to adapt, I promise. But if you're worried that you might have histamine intolerance, or if you're interested to know, the best way to find out is to take a quick test, probably about 2 minutes on my site, which is histamineintolerance.net, and you'll kind of know. And then if you think you might have histamine intolerance, you just cut out certain foods for 3 days and see if you feel a lot better. I cut out all the high histamine. When I first kind of got into this, I cut out high histamine foods for 3 days. And within about an hour, I started to feel better. It didn't take 3 days. It was instant. Yeah. I was like, threw all the chocolate out for a few days and the red wine, and I started to feel so much better. And I've now found some alcohols that suit me all right as well. So I can have the odd drink too. So
what would the odd drink be for you? What can you have?
Well, I do quite like a rum, Angela.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spirit.
Yeah. And there's a vodka called Tito's Vodka, which is distilled 6 times and has no impurities, and is supposed to be pretty much the purest alcohol you can find. And anyone listening in America will know about Tito's Vodka. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but that's pretty good as well. My HRV still goes up, Angela, but
Your HRV or your heart rate goes.
My HRV goes down. Sorry, and my heart rate goes up. Yeah.
So your pulse would, but I find any alcohol elevates my pulse.
Yes.
Yes. Do you find that? And actually lowers, and also what lowers HRV I find as well is just eating late. That's one thing we've really made a big change for. There's been a big benefit of lockdown is eating earlier. Because if I ate any time kind of in the lead up to bed, then that really depresses my HRV quite significantly.
I always thought, I can't believe we are now one of those families that eat at like 6 o'clock, but we are, and I love it.
We are. I love it too. But I know that you're now back at Sky, and you're doing a few night shifts, and you were saying how hard that is staying up late. Have you noticed, what have you noticed on your Aura ring when you're doing a night shift? How do things change in terms of things like HRV, but also levels of like deep sleep and REM sleep?
Yeah, I mean, the eating at work is fine because I'll still eat early, and actually, I can I tend to eat very healthy because the food there is quite limited in choice, and therefore I tend to take my own, and then it's done, and then that's fine. But certainly I've found that when I get home late, and as I say, last night it was kind of 1:15 when I got into bed, it's hard to get the same amount of deep sleep. And I spoke to Matthew Walker about this, and he said, look, you might want to get up at your normal waking up time, even when you sleep late. But I'm doing 4 late shifts in a row at the moment. It's difficult, isn't it? Because we all have to make sacrifices in our jobs. And if you love your job, but it's a job that means you have to go to bed late, sometimes you've got to suck it up. I know it's not very good for me, but I'm just kind of trying to optimize it as much as possible around it. But certainly the Oura ring doesn't seem to know what's going on when I get into bed at 1:15 in the morning.
No, I'm sure. Not compared if you're going usually earlier. But was Matthew Walker then saying get up and have a nap later, or just get up and compromise on the amount of sleep?
Well, he was saying that it might be better to stick to your routine and get back up at the same time. And I spoke to Nick Littlehales as well, who said the same thing. But they're both also quite pragmatic. And if you need more sleep, then you need more sleep. The fact is now, lockdown has meant that actually I got into quite a good circadian rhythm. So now going to bed 3 hours after I normally do is quite a shock to the system. I can't wake up 3 hours later anyway.
No, that's the thing. I find that I would wake up regardless. I think Nick Littlehales has got a good kind of system, hasn't he, where you count back in 90-minute cycles to work out. Have you used that? Like, will you delay going to bed to think, well, actually, I'll try and get however many sleep cycles in?
Well, I love Nick, but it's a bit technical, the whole kind of counting back thing and cycles. So I tend to just try and sleep as much as I can, as long as I can, whenever I can. I'm quite good at napping as well. So today I'm back in at Sky at about 5 o'clock today. I'll probably have a little nap outside this afternoon if I can. And my partner's a yoga teacher, and she's got me very into yoga nidra, which is nice because you could do a kind of 20-minute yoga nidra, which is basically just lying down and listening to somebody talking. And then at the end of it, I often have a little extra kind of 15 minutes shut eye, which is quite nice.
Oh, that is nice. That sounds calming. And you were also mentioning when we were chatting, and I heard your interview, one of your podcasts on Qigong that you've got into. Now I'm excited about this because this helps. This is helpful in the quest to kind of wind down, and you're actually doing something. So it kind of it seems like a good form of exercise that really balances the energy in the body, which I'm super interested in. How have you been getting on with that? Because I know you did a course.
Well, Aaron Collins Thomas is great. And I one of the things I've always wanted to do is a Qigong course. But it was always, you have to sign up for 6 Tuesday evenings at 7:30 in the village hall. And that never really suited my schedule. But now you can do it on Zoom with him. And he's very good. It's, I think, bearing in mind what you want to achieve with slowing down, I think you might like it a lot. Sometimes I just use it instead of a workout. It's about 20 minutes. It's really nice. There's a warm up, which means you focus on every part of your body. The exercises are definitely, there's some stretching in there. There's some physicality in there. You can make it a little bit more physical if you like. And there's a kind of warm down as well. It brings you out of your head into your body. And I like the fact that it's been around for thousands of years. Therefore, it must work because it's been passed down over generations. You know, a lot of the workouts that we do have been around about 5 minutes, and Qigong's been around thousands of years and has been honed and honed across those years, and therefore there must be some good to it.
Yeah, and have you noticed that when you've done it, do you feel like you're more parasympathetically engaged? Like, have you noticed anything there on your HRV? Has that gone up? For example, if you've been really disciplined and regular with it, have you seen any change, or is it more about how you feel energetically?
I haven't noticed any change with the HRV. I've not particularly been tracking it, but I haven't noticed any change. The reason I think it works so well for me, and it might be different, people might have a different effect, but for me it's the breathing. You know, you have to focus on the breath quite a lot. That's the main part of it, really. And you breathe at very specific times, at very specific moments within the practice. If your attention wanders, then you completely lose the breath and lose the physicality as well. But there's something about just breathing deeply. I mean, honestly, today I woke up late. I feel a bit muddle-headed because I haven't had a full night's sleep. I'm going to take the time to do a Qigong this afternoon. But have I actually taken a full, big, deep lung breath yet? I don't know, but I'll certainly do that for 20 minutes when I do that Qigong. And I think for me, that's what makes me feel so different.
Yeah, because you're really kind of oxygenating your tissues. Does it involve nasal breathing? I'm a real novice on this Qigong. So
there was no specificity around nasal breathing.
Okay.
But that probably does help. And actually, I've just spoken to somebody, it'd be good for you to speak to, James Nestor, who's written a book on, he's a journalist, he's just been on Joe Rogan's podcast, he's written a book on breathing. It's absolutely fascinating. The power of the breath and how simple it sounds, and how I think everybody switches off when you start hearing about, what, breathing? Oh, come on, mate. Tell me about L-theanine or a supplement, but don't give me breathing. But actually the power of deep breathing and, as you say, nasal breathing as well, so important.
So important. I recently had Patrick McEwen on, who wrote The Oxygen Advantage.
Yes. I think I saw an Instagram post and watched a video clip about it.
Yeah, that is really interesting, and just how it elevates, nasal breathing elevates nitric oxide production, helps to lower blood pressure and the kind of exchange of oxygen and CO2. Really interesting. And I think I didn't realise until I did that session with him how disordered my breathing still is actually after having had asthma induced by the pneumonia I had. So really interesting. And so what are you doing now? Are you now fully out of has life gone back to normal for you? Like you said, you're doing more shifts at Sky, or are you kind of still in this sort of semi-lockdown life?
I think semi-lockdown. I think we're all a
Semi.
little bit in
We're all a bit
semi-lockdown
semi,
life.
aren't we?
Yeah, all a bit semi. Yeah. It's I mean, I was always in at Sky. We've been doing 1 day a week ever since lockdown started. It's 2 days a week now, and I normally do 3. So I'm very grateful that Sky have been brilliant and are still paying us normally. So that's perfect. It's very odd in the office. You know, most of the people still are not there in the studio. There are probably 10% of the people that are normally there, and we've somehow made it work on air. It looks great on air, bearing in mind, you know, so many people aren't actually able to make it in at the moment. It's odd, isn't it? I mean, we all got quite ill in early March when everything kind of kicked off with. I presented this big ping pong tournament. Loads of people flew in from all over the world, including from China. And then a couple of weeks later, we got ill. We did antibody tests, and Faith tested positive and I tested negative for antibodies, which is bizarre, isn't it? But we all had the same symptoms. Yeah.
But then I suppose, they're saying you don't necessarily get antibodies, but sometimes it's in the T cells.
Yes.
But so she has definitely had it though, and you were
she's
both
definitely
at the same
had
time,
it, and I'm working on the assumption that I've definitely had it as well, because we had the same symptoms. But as you say, might have been the C cells, or I might not have had it. But I mean, it was pretty bad. I think 1-year-old son had it as well. I mean, he was the one who kind of got ill first with a dreadful cough that went on for weeks. But
so he was symptomatic. That's interesting, isn't it?
He was, but again,
that children aren't.
He did. It would also coincide with him going to nursery, and he seems to have picked up everything from nursery, so it might have been that. But I mean, that's something that's probably a bit of a distant memory for you now. But I mean, goodness me,
That's
amount
not
of
a fun
things.
stage.
Yeah, the first kind of 5 or 6 weeks of nursery. But of course, also I pride myself on, I never get ill. I'm fine. Look at all this healthy stuff I'm doing. I've been picking up everything that he gets as well.
You do, don't you, for a while when they're little, and you do. So in terms of your...
By the way, sorry to interrupt, Angela. There is some interesting research that parents live longer than non-parents. And one of the theories for this is that as a parent, you have almost like a second childhood of illnesses when your child is young, and you get all those illnesses again. But actually what it does is it builds up your immunity in later years. So I'm working on that. That's making me feel better when I get yet another kind of runny nose or cold from him.
You definitely I notice, more resilient. So I had the same as you when they were really tiny. You're just getting a constant onslaught of things. So even when you don't get fully sick with it, you're just under the weather, aren't you? Runny nose and the other thing is they bring home a lot of stomach complaints at that age as well, which is never nice.
But
so
now your oldest
mix,
is now a teenager. Am I right in saying that?
We have a teenager in the house.
Wow, how does that feel, being the mum to a teenager?
I think I'm showing my age, Tony. That's how it makes me feel.
No,
it feels strange.
A few more sessions in the anti-aging sauna, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I just need to keep going in there. I feel like what struck me was I can't believe that he'll actually be old enough to drive in 4 years' time. That was 4 years. Like, how did that go? You probably look at your little man and think, I can't imagine him as a grown man yet, because it just seems so far away, but it goes so fast. So yeah, it is different. We're definitely seeing some adolescence. I've got a nearly 12-year-old as well, so two boys that are kind of hitting that stage. But I was going to ask you, so in terms of you, like, you were talking to me, we were discussing supplements, and I know you've been into your cooking, and obviously with the histamine diet as well, you're really healthy and optimized. But what supplements do you take yourself to kind of boost physical and mental function?
Again, I look into methylation quite a lot. I don't think methylation comes particularly naturally to me. And I think I need to do quite a lot of detoxing, which is why the Sunlighten Sauna has worked so well. But at the start, I could only use the Sunlighten Sauna for about 10 minutes because I would detox so much.
Did you? So what did you notice then? Because when I bought mine, they were saying how some individuals, when they sweat, they would actually see like a milky fluid come out. It wouldn't even be clear. Did you get any of that?
No way. I didn't get that, but I know what I'm like when I'm detoxing, and it was pretty full on. So I would just sit in there, it wouldn't get that hot, and I would about 10 minutes. And now I feel it's obviously helped a lot. And I have noticed my HRV improve through using that as well. I do take methylation vitamins, but I tend to take ones that can help me do it in quite a gentle way. L-theanine is one that I love with coffee.
Oh, do you take it alongside coffee?
I took it this morning. Yeah, it certainly takes the edge off. And it's interesting what you were saying about nootropics losing their power if you take them all the time. I think that's probably a very good thing to remember. I'll try and remember that with the L-theanine.
I don't know if you'd notice it as much. I mean, maybe a bit with the L-theanine, because I guess it applies to them all. I find L-theanine, I do like. It kind of just takes that edge. You don't get any... I don't really get jitters from caffeine, but it does kind of calm you. And I feel like it sort of elongates those concentration effects from the caffeine, don't you? That's what I like about it.
Definitely, yeah.
I've actually run out. You've just reminded me now that I haven't taken that in a while.
Yeah.
But you know, when you take those nootropic blends, I mean, actually some of them, Qualia, I think even they say, don't they, that you need to cycle like 5 days on, 2 days off at the weekend to try and help prevent that.
Right, I love that name, Qualia. We talked about that before, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I take a few histamine supplements as well. You know, I take quercetin at night. We talked about cycles earlier on. Well, the histamine cycle means that early in the morning, your histamine levels are highest in the body. That's why it's very hard to test for histamine, because if you do a test at, say, 6 in the morning, your histamine levels might be completely different as to what they are at 6 in the afternoon, and it will be very dependent on what food you've eaten as well. So I tend to take some quercetin at night. And I was very jealous when you mentioned omega-3 supplements, because all the good omega-3s are very high in histamine. Cod liver oil and algae tend to be, they're all high histamine. But I've just bought some patches. I don't know if you've ever tried these supplements where you put a patch on as opposed to taking a pill. Yeah, it's quite an interesting idea. I've been trying the vitamin C at night. You just put a patch on and you absorb a certain amount of vitamin C transdermally overnight. And I bought some omega-3. I thought, well, if I'm bypassing the gut, then I might kind of be able to absorb it a little bit better. So I need to try them as well. But I'm a bit nervous because, yeah, high histamine supplements I do definitely react to. So I'm gonna take it easzy with that.
And what would be the reaction that you would get? How quickly would that happen, and what would you experience?
Oh, I mean, I tried...
You'd have to use... It would be like an urgent need to use the bathroom?
Not that so much, but I tried Nordic Naturals Ultimate Omega, and I tried a vegan omega-3 one with the algae capsules. And I mean, for me, it doesn't happen straight away. It tends to happen within 12 to 24 hours, get a bad gut and kind of foggy head. And I just know. And actually... I had quite a reaction to that Ultimate Omega, and it's come so highly recommended as well. And it took a few days to sort myself out. Bit of charcoal tablets and sauna sessions.
Oh wow, so quite long lasting as well. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so the patches, who makes those? They sound exciting.
The patches. Oh, do you know what? I can't even remember. I might
quite like to try that vitamin C.
Wait there one sec. I'm in the spare room, and I think I've got some vitamin C. One sec. Just walking over to get some patches. Here we go. 1 second. I'll just put my headphones on again. Patch MD is the company.
Patch MD.
Patch MD.
It's a UK company.
Yeah, no, I think it's a US company, but you can get them in the UK.
Oh, you can get them here.
And it's a topical patch. Now, the one I've got here is a comprehensive vitamin C. They've got quercetin in there as well. And yeah, you just put it on. And
quercetine's great for anti-aging as well, isn't it? Longevity.
Well, exactly. I love quercetin for lots of reasons. But there's 30 patches in the pack. And I think you leave it on for 8 hours and you absorb it over 8 hours.
And how much vitamin C will you absorb, do they think, in 8 hours?
2,000 milligrams.
Oh, my goodness. So decent dose. This just sounds like a no-brainer while you're sleeping.
Do you know what? While I'm talking to you, I'm going to put one on now. Why not?
Put one on. Why not?
I know, yeah.
Why not? Just boost it. Yeah.
Just go for it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to try one of those. Do you think that will help me with... I like vitamin C for collagen formation as well. So that could maybe even enhance the effects of beauty sleep, the kind of deep sleep.
Well, I am very impressed. You're the mother to a teenager. You're certainly doing something right on the anti-aging.
Oh, I wish. Anyway, we'll keep working on it as much as you can. So what would you say then, just to kind of close, what's changed for you health-wise? Is there anything that during lockdown that you can say, I'll look back and say, that was brilliant because?
That's an excellent question. I've got a closing question for you as well, as you well know.
I'm nervous now.
But do you know what? I think one of the things for me is that I was just reading in the papers today that grocery sales have gone through the roof during lockdown. And obviously because we're all eating a lot more at home. And for me, that has meant that I've been able to focus on the quality of my food. I mean, I can't believe how much our supermarket bill is every week, but it's meant that I can focus on the quality of the food, eat better food. I'm not always religious about the low histamine. As you know, I'll have a glass of vodka or a bit of chocolate every once in a while, and that's absolutely fine. But generally, the quality of the food has been better. I've been eating more of what I want to eat, and there's less, oh my God, it's 6 o'clock, I'm at work, and what am I going to eat? There's nothing here that is particularly tasty. And as a result, I've noticed my overall health get pretty good. I think my histamine levels have gone down. I've been feeling good. So that's probably been the benefit of lockdown. And obviously now it's kind of easing a bit. And there's a new Five Guys that's just opened in Chiswick, and I spent about 20 minutes googling their website last night, and I thought, I'm gonna have to get involved in that at some point as well. So it's not all the perfect low histamine diet. But what about you?
So I would say very similar to you in terms of food. I feel amazing. I can notice the effect because I work a lot from home anyway. I'm used to preparing my own food. I definitely see that in my husband. He looks different. He really, 4 months from working from home, no commuting. We go for long walks in the morning. This has been one of my favorite lockdown things, actually. This would be the standout one for me, is we've been going on walks. We live just by Walton Heath Golf Course. And so we've been going there and into the woodland every morning at kind of 6:30 in the morning. And it's just been with our dogs, the most amazing thing. Time to chat, time to have together, because we don't really get that now with kids that are staying out later in the evening. And just being out in nature and the benefits. That's just been amazing.
And you can leave the kids at home these days, can you?
We can, yes, we can.
Wow, what a difference.
I know, that's crazy when that starts to happen.
Yeah.
We can, for short times. And that's amazing. I don't think a 13-year-old's probably not up to babysitting in the evening, are they? I think they've got to be 14, 15. Yeah. But certainly like in the morning, they're mostly still asleep. So we'll just dive out for 45 minutes with the dogs and go for a walk.
Well, I've played Walton Heath before. And
have you?
And I hacked around it, and it's a beautiful part of the world. So isn't it? How nice that you live there. Yeah, that's great.
So that's been one of my favourites. And eating healthily, fresh cooked food's been amazing too.
Well, just to round it off, I always ask about one book and one tip for living with more energy. I know you read a lot, and and I love watching your Instagram and seeing the kind of things that you've been getting involved in. Is there anything that you've been reading recently that has, apart from Harry Potter, that has particularly resonated? Yeah,
it has actually, and quite a few people probably have read it because it's not a new one, but I think it's a great book. Is Deep Work by Cal Newport.
Oh yeah, I've read that. Brilliant.
Have you? Isn't it a brilliant book? It's just full of tips. And that for me, because a part of this whole kind of slowing down thing that I'm doing, obviously with 3 kids and 2 dogs, there's competing demands on my time a lot of the time. And so getting into deep work sometimes can be quite a challenge, and not being interrupted. And then resisting the temptation to sort of then overwork. So by focusing on how can I do really high quality work and avoid distractions has been invaluable. So I think that's a great book. That would definitely be one I would recommend for, especially for people that are working increasingly from home.
Excellent. What about one tip then?
One tip in terms of one tip for energy?
Energy and vitality. Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned so many already, but is there anything in particular? Is it the walking in the morning? Is that...
The walking in the morning is a big one. I really noticed that, and it just has alleviated so much back pain. I just think that movement, just getting the body moving, creates energy as soon as you wake up. That's a really big one. And the other one, like you, eating early, just avoiding food before bed and making sure that I'm consistently, we eat so much earlier as a family. That has been a game changer for me, because I find that I sleep so much better. I don't even have to try with my sleep. My deep sleep's really nice, and my REM sleep, and I wake up refreshed. So yeah, I don't even wake up with an alarm anymore, which is a first for me. I always now just wake up naturally, no alarm, somewhere between kind of 5:30 and 6.
Lovely. I mean, just on that theme, we're off on holiday with the family in the next couple of days, and my sister's family and my mum as well. And because of what's happening with coronavirus, the hotel has meant that you've got to book tables at certain times. And I know that we've got quite a few dinners in where we're sitting down to eat at 8 o'clock, which of course for most people isn't that late. Maybe I'm just a boring old fogey now, but I'm going to be looking at my watch thinking, I need to get some food in me here, otherwise my tummy will be terrible and I won't sleep well at night.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I think, do you know what? Go for a walk after dinner. I think that will make a big difference.
Great idea.
And
I'm
it really
so
helps.
pleased. That's an excellent tip. I'm going to do that every night.
Just 15 minutes, and I think you'll sleep way better.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
On that
have
note,
a lovely holiday. You're going somewhere new. Nice.
we're going to Cornwall, to
Lovely.
Watergate Bay. So it's going to be.
I like Watergate Bay.
Yeah, it'll be lovely. And our little boy is just on the verge of walking. So by the time this goes out, he'll probably be doing that, which will be exciting. Yeah.
Oh, what a cutie.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Angela. I always love talking to you, and absolutely love your Instagram and everything you do as well. So if you do anything specific on menstrual cycle, on kind of time of the month, and alleviating PMT as well, do let me know, because I think that'd be really interesting as well. I'd love to share that with people, and I'll be interested to know more.
Yeah, for sure, I will. It's something that I'm actually now physically tracking, and it's really interesting. So I'm tracking my sleep in relation to it, my exercise, how I feel, all of those things, because I think, it's just the few tweaks that I'm making are really changing things up. So I'll definitely keep in touch with you on that, and I will link to everything. Thank you so much for this today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you back, and I will link to your histamine website. But share it now. Tell everyone the name of the histamine site, because I think it's going to help so many people.
Thanks. It's histamineintolerance.net. And
brilliant.
Yeah, I mean,
and you have a specific Instagram for that as well.
I do. Yeah, it's Histamine Intolerance site. And you know, it's interesting actually, because I'm a journalist and a blogger. I'm not a medical expert, and it's interesting how many people are getting in touch with me, asking me for advice on all sorts of histamine issues. To which I always say, I'm not the man to offer you advice, but here's some other places you could go. But it just shows how many people are looking for answers around histamine intolerance, and I'm enjoying that a lot. Just quickly, what are your sites?
So mine is angelafosterperformance.com. And then it's just Angela S. Foster on Instagram. That's probably the platform I'm most active on.
Good. All right. Well, lovely to talk to you. I'm going to go and break my fast now, so we'll speak again soon.
Enjoy. Take care.
That's it for Zestology. Thank you to Angela. Thank you for listening. And cheers once again to my podcast partners, Magnesium Breakthrough. If you head to bioptimizers.co.uk or bioptimizers.com, you can get your bottle of Magnesium Breakthrough, and you get 10% off by using the code Zestology10. They've actually got quite a nice deal going at the moment. They are so confident that you're going to like it. You might want to take advantage of this. They will give you all your money back if you don't like Magnesium Breakthrough. That's good, isn't it? So it's kind of no risk. I mean, I think you probably will like it, but if you don't, you can just get your money back. Theoretically, you could ask for your money back anyway, but I know you wouldn't do that if you did like it. Now, with Magnesium Breakthrough, you can reverse magnesium deficiency in all its forms and upgrade the performance of your body, including how you look and feel. It really does make a difference in a lot of different ways. And if you head to bioptimizers.co.uk, if you're in the UK, and bioptimizers.com if you're anywhere else, all the details are on there. I hope you enjoy it. I love it, and I've been taking it every day, and I'm intermittent fasting at the moment, but I'm just heading back towards my home now in London, and I'm going to make myself a light lunch. My favourite recent low histamine lunch, mozzarella and cherry salad. I'll have a bit of that, and I'll have my Magnesium Breakthrough after that, I think. Bioptimizers.co.uk and bioptimizers.com. Use that code Zestology10, and that is pretty much it. Got a lot of exciting podcasts coming up for you in September, including the genius doctor behind the biohacking tablet that you see a lot of people walking around with, taking. You see a lot of people in this biohacking world with blue tongues. What's that all about? It's this supplement called methylene blue, which supercharges your focus and creativity, and it's pretty mad actually. I don't I'm not going to tell you too much about what it exactly does at the moment, because I don't really know. I will once I've interviewed Dr. Ted. But at the moment I know that I've taken a quarter of one tablet a few times, and it made my tongue very blue, and I felt pretty good on it. So that'll be good. That's coming up very shortly. Look, thanks for listening to Zestology. In the meantime, hope you continue to enjoy your late summer days and evenings, and I'll speak to you once again next week.